While America was watching Ronald Reagan take office and MTV launch its first music video, the Philadelphia Mint was quietly creating what would become one of the most overlooked gold mines in modern American coinage. You see, most people think dimes are just 10 cents. Period. But in 1981, the U.S. Mint produced a Roosevelt dime that's been hiding in plain sight for over 4 decades. And today, collectors are paying hundreds, sometimes thousands, of dollars for what looks like ordinary pocket change. Let me ask you this. When's the last time you really looked at a dime? Really examined one? Because if you haven't been paying attention to your Roosevelt dimes from 1981, you might have literally thrown away a small fortune. Here's what happened. The year 1981 was pivotal for American coinage, though nobody realized it at the time. The Philadelphia Mint was producing Roosevelt dimes at full capacity. Over 676 million coins rolled off the presses that year. Sounds like a lot, right? But here's where the story gets fascinating. Back when Reagan was promising to make America great again, the mint workers in Philadelphia were dealing with some serious quality control issues. Die varieties, striking errors, and what numismatists call mint state preservation were creating coins that would later become the holy grail for collectors. Now, you might be wondering, what makes a 1981 dime special? Fair question. After all, 1981 wasn't that long ago in coin collecting terms. But sometimes it's not about age, it's about rarity, condition, and what collectors call eye appeal. The 1981 Roosevelt dime came in two main varieties that smart collectors watch for today. First, you've got your standard Philadelphia mint strike. No mint mark, just like dimes have been produced for decades. But then there's the real treasure, the 1981 S-proof dime. Let me tell you about proof coins for a moment, because this is where things get really interesting. Proof coins aren't made for circulation. They're specially struck using polished dies and blanks, creating that mirror-like finish that makes collectors' hearts skip a beat. The San Francisco Mint produced these proof dimes exclusively for collectors, and they were sold in special proof sets. But here's the kicker, and this is what most people don't realize. Not all proof dimes from 1981 are created equal. Some of these proof dimes exhibit what's called deep cameo contrast. Picture this. The raised portions of Roosevelt's profile shine like mirrors, while the background fields are frosted white. When you see a deep cameo 1981 S-proof dime under proper lighting, it's absolutely stunning. The professional coin grading service, that's PCGS for those keeping track, has graded thousands of these 1981 proof dimes over the years. But here's where collectors start reaching for their wallets. Finding one graded proof 70 deep cameo is like finding a needle in a haystack. I'm talking about perfect coins. Zero flaws. No spots, no scratches, no imperfections whatsoever. And when these perfect 1981 S-proof dimes hit the auction market, collectors go crazy. Just last year, a 1981 S Roosevelt dime graded PR 70 deep cameo sold at auction for over $1,200. $1,200 for a dime. Let that sink in for a minute. While most people were spending these coins on gumballs and parking meters 40 years ago, this particular specimen was being carefully preserved by a collector who understood its potential. But wait, there's more to the 1981 dime story. The regular Philadelphia mint dimes, the ones without mint marks, have their own collecting niche. High-grade examples in what we call mint state condition can fetch serious money too. See, most 1981 dimes that ended up in circulation got banged around pretty good. They went through counting machines, got dropped on sidewalks, rattled around in cash registers, and generally lived hard lives. Finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is increasingly difficult. Collectors grade these circulation strike dimes on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. An MS 68 1981 Roosevelt dime, that's mint state 68 for newcomers, represents a coin that's essentially perfect to the naked eye, with only the slightest imperfections visible under magnification. And here's something that might surprise you. These high-grade 1981 dimes are selling for $150 to $300 at coin shows and online auctions. Not bad for a coin you might have spent on a phone call back in the day. The key is knowing what to look for. When examining a 1981 Roosevelt dime, you want to check several things. First, look at Roosevelt's cheek and jaw area. These high points show where first. Next, examine the torch on the reverse side. Those flame details should be sharp and well-defined. Color matters too. Original mint luster gives these dimes a brilliant, almost cartwheel-like appearance when you rotate them under light. Coins that have been cleaned or processed lose this natural luster and become significantly less valuable. Now, here's something every collector should know about 1981 dimes. The mintage figures tell only part of the story. Yes, Philadelphia produced over 676 million dimes that year, and San Francisco added another 4 million proof examples. But survival rates in top condition? That's a completely different story. Think about it this way. How many 1981 dimes do you think survived 40-plus years in perfect condition? Most got spent, lost, or damaged. The few that remain in pristine state are becoming increasingly scarce as more collectors recognize their value. The investment potential here is real. Over the past decade, high-grade Roosevelt dimes from the early 1980s have shown steady appreciation. It's not just about the rarity anymore. It's about the growing recognition among collectors that these modern coins represent the last generation of truly silver-free Roosevelt dimes before major composition changes. For collectors just getting started, 1981 Roosevelt dimes offer an accessible entry point into modern numismatics. You can still find decent examples in circulation if you're diligent about checking your change. And unlike some of the more expensive classic coins, building a collection around Roosevelt dime varieties won't require a second mortgage. But here's my advice. If you're serious about collecting 1981 dimes, focus on quality over quantity. One certified MS 67 example will outperform 10 average coins every time. The market rewards exceptional condition, and that trend is only accelerating. The beauty of the 1981 Roosevelt dime lies in its accessibility and potential. It's modern enough that perfect examples still exist, yet old enough that finding them requires knowledge and patience. For collectors who appreciate the thrill of the hunt combined with solid investment potential, these dimes represent an opportunity that's still flying under most people's radar. Hashtag Section 2, the 1999 Roosevelt dime. But if you think the 1981 dime story is impressive, wait until you hear what happened with the 1999 dime. We're talking about a coin that's caused such a stir in collecting circles that some experts are calling it the sleeper hit of modern numismatics. The prices I'm about to share might just change how you look at every piece of change in your pocket. Asterisk. While you were preparing for Y2K and wondering if your computer would crash at midnight, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing what would become one of the most talked about Roosevelt dimes in modern history. And here's the crazy part. Most collectors didn't see it coming until it was almost too late. Picture this. It's 1999, everyone's worried about the Millennium Bug, and the Philadelphia and Denver mints are cranking out Roosevelt dimes like there's no tomorrow. Over 2.1 billion dimes from Philadelphia alone, plus another 1.4 billion from Denver. Sounds like way too many coins to ever be valuable, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. See, what happened with the 1999 Roosevelt dime is a perfect example of why smart collectors never judge a coin by its mintage numbers alone. Sometimes, it's not about how many were made. It's about what happened to them afterward. Here's where the story gets really interesting. By 1999, most Americans had stopped paying attention to their pocket change. Credit cards were taking over. Exact change was becoming less common, and people were literally throwing dimes into jars without a second thought. Meanwhile, vending machines and coin-counting devices were beating the heck out of these brand-new dimes faster than ever before. But there's something else that makes the 1999 dime special, something that didn't become obvious until years later. The quality control at both mints that year produced some absolutely exceptional strikes. I'm talking about dimes with razor-sharp details, brilliant luster, and what collectors call full bands on the torch. Now, let me explain what full bands means because this is crucial for understanding why certain 1999 dimes are selling for hundreds of dollars today. On the reverse side of every Roosevelt dime, you'll see a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch. That torch has horizontal bands. But if you think the 1981 dime story is impressive, wait until you hear what happened with the 1999 dime. We're talking about a coin that's caused such a stir in collecting circles that some experts are calling it the sleeper hit of modern numismatics. The prices I'm about to share might just change how you look at every piece of change in your pocket. While you were preparing for Y2K and wondering if your computer would crash at midnight, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing what would become one of the most talked about Roosevelt dimes in modern history. And here's the crazy part. Most collectors didn't see it coming until it was almost too late. Picture this. It's 1999, everyone's worried about the Millennium Bug, and the Philadelphia and Denver Mints are cranking out Roosevelt dimes like there's no tomorrow. Over 2.1 billion dimes from Philadelphia alone, plus another 1.4 billion from Denver. Sounds like way too many coins to ever be valuable, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. See, what happened with the 1999 Roosevelt dime is a perfect example of why smart collectors never judge a coin by its mintage numbers alone. Sometimes it's not about how many were made. It's about what happened to them afterward. Here's where the story gets really interesting. By 1999, most Americans had stopped paying attention to their pocket change. Credit cards were taking over. Exact change was becoming less common, and people were literally throwing dimes into jars without a second thought. Meanwhile, vending machines and coin-counting devices were beating the heck out of these brand new dimes faster than ever before. But there's something else that makes the 1999 dime special, something that didn't become obvious until years later. The quality control at both mints that year produced some absolutely exceptional strikes. I'm talking about dimes with razor-sharp details, brilliant luster, and what collectors call full bands on the torch. Now, let me explain what full bands means because this is crucial for understanding why certain 1999 dimes are selling for hundreds of dollars today. On the reverse side of every Roosevelt dime, you'll see a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch. That torch has horizontal bands running across it. And on most dimes, those bands are weak or incomplete due to die wear and striking pressure issues. But when everything aligns perfectly, fresh dies, proper striking pressure, quality planchets, those torch bands come out crisp and complete. Collectors call these full band or FB designations, and they command serious premiums. A regular 1999 Roosevelt dime in average uncirculated condition might be worth face value, maybe a quarter to a dollar. But find one with full bands graded MS, 68 FB by PCGS or NGC. Now we're talking real money. Just 6 months ago, a 1999 P. Roosevelt dime graded MS, 69 FB sold at heritage auctions for $1,680. $1,680 for a dime that someone probably got in change from a McDonald's drive-thru 25 years ago. And that's not even the record. The highest graded 1999 P dime, an MS 70 FB specimen, brought over $3,000 when it hit the auction block in 2023. $3,000 for a coin that most people would spend without thinking twice. But here's what's driving these crazy prices: survival rates. Remember, we're talking about coins from 1999, not 1899. These dimes went straight into circulation where they got hammered by decades of use. Finding one that somehow escaped unscathed is like finding a vintage car that's been parked in a garage since the day it left the showroom. The Denver Mint coins, those marked with a small D mint mark, have their own collecting following. The 1999 D. Roosevelt dime actually has a slightly lower survival rate in top grades than its Philadelphia counterpart, making high-grade examples even more sought after. Here's something that might blow your mind. According to the major grading services, fewer than 50 examples of 1999 D. Roosevelt dimes have ever been certified in MS 69 full bands condition. Fewer than 50 out of 1.4 billion coins minted. Those numbers explain why a 1999 DMS 69 FB dime sold for $2,200 at Stack's Bowers auction last year. We're dealing with population numbers that low, even modest collector demand creates significant price pressure. Now, you might be wondering, how do I spot a potentially valuable 1999 dime? Great question. First, You need to understand what to look for in terms of condition. The coin should have original mint luster, that bright satiny shine that gives the surface an almost cartwheel effect when rotated under light. Check Roosevelt's hair details, especially the area above his ear. On high-grade examples, every strand should be sharp and well-defined. Look at his cheek and jaw. These are the first places to show contact marks or bag marks from the minting process. On the reverse, examine those torch bands carefully. You want to see complete, unbroken horizontal lines across the torch. Many dimes will show partial bands or weak strikes in this area. Full, sharp bands are what separate the valuable coins from the common ones. Color is critical too. Original 1999 dimes should have brilliant white surfaces, maybe with just a hint of golden toning around the edges. Avoid coins that look dull, spotted, or artificially bright. These have likely been cleaned or processed, which kills their collector value. The mint mark location is another detail worth noting. Philadelphia coins have no mint mark, while Denver coins show a small D to the left of the torch on the reverse. Both varieties have their collectors, but the Denver coins seem to be slightly scarcer in top grades. Here's an insider tip that most collectors don't think about: bank rolls. Yes, those paper-wrapped rolls of dimes you can get from any bank. While most will contain circulated coins, occasionally you'll find a roll with uncirculated examples that have been sitting in bank vaults since 1999. I know collectors who've spent hours going through bank rolls, looking for that one exceptional 1999 dime. It's tedious work, but when you consider that finding a single MS-68 FB example could net you $800 to $1,200, the time investment starts making sense. The proof versions from 1999 tell their own story. The San Francisco Mint produced about 2.5 million proof dimes that year, sold exclusively in proof sets to collectors. These coins were struck using specially polished dies and blanks, creating the distinctive mirror-like finish. But even among proofs, condition is everything. A standard 1999 S-proof dime might be worth $3 to $5. But find one graded PR, 70 deep cameo, absolute perfection, and you're looking at $400 to $600 at auction. What's driving the collector interest in 1999 Roosevelt dimes goes beyond just rarity and condition. There's a growing recognition among numismatists that these represent the last generation of classic Roosevelt dimes before significant design and production changes in the 2000s. So the next time you're sorting through your change, take a close look at those Roosevelt dimes. That ordinary-looking coin from 1999 might just be your ticket to the Collector's Hall of Fame. After all, in the world of numismatics, yesterday's pocket change can become tomorrow's treasure. And that, my friends, is the magic of coin collecting. You never know when you're holding a small fortune in the palm of your hand.